The desperate cat's cries worried them. They were too adamant to be harmless. When she saw the cat near the baby, she knew it needed help. The cat was calling for help because the baby was alone in the garden. But things were different. It was complicated. Cats are surprisingly loyal to their owners and homes. Perhaps this is why one curious cat couldn't leave after hearing a strange noise. Because someone was clearly in distress, Kiki, the cat, had to help. She never considered fleeing and charging toward the crying. Kiki couldn't leave. Instead, she felt compelled to assist. Sam spent most of his life in Oslo, Norway, in a large home with many friends and acquaintances. Not all residents were human. Kiki, a cat, lived in the foyer. Kiki was said to have moved into the house a few years earlier and loved it so much she didn't want to leave. The cat visited Sam most, even though everyone in the neighborhood treated her like their own. Sam noticed Kiki didn't eat one morning. After calling for her for a while, he realized the cat had disappeared or died. He searched for Kiki alone and asked locals if they saw her. She disappeared. The cat returned soon, starting a chain of events that shook the neighborhood. After 3 years, something upset Kiki's daily routine. The neighbors were shocked and upset to hear Kiki crying and meowing at the top of her lungs because she was usually quiet. One resident thought Kiki was hurt and left his apartment to investigate. The first man to hear Kiki ran outside in the garden to find her, followed by another. Kiki's intense meow was also heard by the resident. If you like my videos, don't forget to like or subscribe. Thanks in advance. Sam also heard the piercing noise from his house. He couldn't imagine how he'd feel if Kiki was hurt. Sam followed the other resident outside and found her sitting there making strange noises. They realized something was very wrong. Kiki wasn't alone. They took in the scene and stared at each other for a few seconds. Kiki stared at them from her usual sleeping spot. The newcomer was lying next to a garden tree behind Kiki's bed. The two men gasped at the amazing scene. The cat lay on something as if protecting it. When the men approached Kiki, they saw something terrible. Jaws dropped. What happened? Norway's capital? While debating, the men wondered. Soon, neighborhood residents joined in. Everyone was incredulous. They had to act regardless. While one person approached the cat, another called the police. This was unattainable. When an abandoned child needed help, the family cat disproved the stereotype that cats are cold and distant. Cats are just as curious as humans. One cat's instincts put her in an unexpected place. This cat did something unforgettable after finding a baby in the cold. Baby under cat. Sam was confused and overwhelmed, especially since Kiki was protecting the baby that seemed to have been abandoned there and was clearly distressed. Kiki took in the abandoned baby after hearing it cry. Instead of hissing or scaring him, she looked after the baby like her own and made sure he was okay. She laid down next to the newborn to keep him warm and seemed to calm the child, who wasn't crying. Sam and everyone else were astonished by the sight. Sam was overwhelmed and unsure what to do. He didn't realize Kiki had been keeping the baby warm for hours and trying to get people's attention until he looked closer. Kiki protected the baby from the harsh weather, possibly saving its life. Kiki's friends were impressed by her life-saving act but worried about the child. He okay? Was he there long? Parents? Sam saw the baby was very young and vulnerable. Do something soon. Kiki, the cat, called for help, and the people at the scene needed to too. Act now. They called police and paramedics. They knew that the authorities would know what to do with the abandoned child but also wanted to ensure that the baby was healthy. Kiki's extreme baby protection surprised everyone. Kiki didn't want the baby away. She loved the baby and tried to protect it. Kiki followed the baby everywhere. Kiki followed paramedics to the ambulance to check the child. She also meowed at the ambulance until she saw the baby herself. The baby was hospitalized for a checkup. A spokesperson for the local hospital later reported to a news agency and confirmed that the baby boy was doing fine and had no injuries in any way from his ordeal. Another Russian story proves that cats are smarter and more loyal than we think. Train sirens blared. Cats meowed in the dark. Concerned for the animal, he applied the emergency brake immediately. A further surprise was revealed when the officer saw what the cat was sheltering. Katie cat heated a baby between rails. Most cats, especially females, can recognize a baby. If they sense something is threatening to a child, they will protect him or her. Katie, the train station's furry friend, did this. Katie, the cat, acted when she saw the baby in distress. She never considered fleeing because she couldn't leave the child. This story is amazing because she knew she had to help. Vladivostok, Russia, raised Anton Petrov. He loved the train station. Anton never complained about the hard work. Anton is kind and loved by all. Despite having many friends, he prefers cats. His work schedule prevented him from adopting a cat. That changed soon. Russia has intense, gloomy weather. The country's freezing winters are made worse by the growing number of stray animals. Anton wanted to rescue all the homeless animals. He welcomed Katie at the train station because he loves animals. Katie appeared at Vladivostok station one winter evening in 2012. One of the coldest winters in history. Anton heard noises outside while working. He initially ignored it, but when it continued, he knew he had to investigate. He saw a shivering kitten. He immediately took her inside, which would change his life. The train station adopted Katie that night. Anton loved her the most. He fed, watered, and scratched her back. Anton knew it was cold outside and was happy to give her a warm place to stay. Katie made a significant impact on Anton's life. Still his cat, he couldn't take her home. She smiled at him every day. Katie lived peacefully at the station for 3 years until something terrible happened. On Saturday night, station workers heard a chilling sound. They heard their beloved Katie. Katie's crying and meowing surprised and upset the workers because she kept to herself. One employee jumped up to investigate Katie's injury. Her discovery shivered her. Anton heard his office's piercing sounds and knew something was wrong. He cried at the thought of hurting Katie. Anton followed his co-workers down to Katie's room. He exhaled when he saw her making noises. He discovered she wasn't alone. The two officers stared at the situation. Katie was watching them from a box she usually slept in, but a baby was sleeping behind the rubbish chute. Katie appeared to be protecting the distressed child who appeared to have been abandoned there, and the workers were at a loss. Katie took in the abandoned child after hearing its cries. She cared for the child like her own, not scaring him. When she cuddled with the crying baby, he calmed down. Anton was astonished by the train track scene. Russian TV network RT interviewed Anton after the incident. He was asked about his first impression of Katie cuddling an abandoned child. He said he was confused and unsure what to do. He didn't realize Katie had been keeping the baby warm for hours while trying to attract attention until he looked closer. Katie's miraculous weather protection may have saved a baby's life. Katie's life-saving skills impressed everyone, but they worried about the baby. How was the baby there? How long was he alone? Parents? Even though the baby was older, he was still at risk. Anton called the paramedics and police without realizing how protective Katie was of the child. She didn't want to leave her baby. Katie followed the child everywhere. Katie's motherhood continued. Katie was a smart cat, as everyone saw. She realized the baby needed help. This cat would not rest until she knew he was safe. Station employees said Katie stayed by the road for hours after the child was taken. Katie got the child to the hospital. She kept him warm, preventing untold horrors. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.